Step 1 Academy. I'm Dr. C. Please join me in this musical journey. Let's go! Hello, everybody. I'm here today with my great friend, Brian Seaton. He's an amazing guy. He is an oboe and English horn player who's going to tell us today about these beautiful instruments. Brian, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. How's this past 4 months been for you?
It's been okay. My wife, Andrea Pettigrew, who's a violinist that we all know, we've been, of course, not playing concerts, but doing some teaching online. And we have a music store in Hendersonville, North Carolina, where we live, and where I work on instruments, and we build oboes, and instruments get sent to us from all over North America, really. So that's been kind of moving along. Also, what we've been doing is we have a number of elderly people in our street, in our neighborhood, that we've been looking after and doing all their grocery shopping and driving them to appointments so that they don't have to be out in the public.
Tell me a little bit, about how you started playing.
I started playing the oboe in grade 6, so age 11 or 12, I guess. And my older brother played clarinet, and I always had to be better than him at everything. And so I didn't want to play the clarinet because that's what he did, so I had to do something harder and do it better. So I tried the oboe, but I didn't really practice for like 4 years. I just kind of left it at school. It was just like poking my brother. It wasn't really about music. And then in high school, I had a good friend of mine, tuba player, and he introduced me to classical music. And he lived very close to me, and I would go over to his house and we would listen to recordings of Shostakovich and Stravinsky and, big heavy hitters. And I'd never heard anything like that before. And it was very overwhelming. I was having these very strong emotional responses, and it was like magic. It was just like magic, that sound could affect you emotionally and physically. And I just had to be part of that.
Do you think you had it in you, so you just needed somebody to kind of, wake it up? Or it was kind of forming? Yeah?
I don't think it was in me. There was really no musical background in my family. I didn't grow up with my parents listening to the radio or playing records. It just kind of happened. And I think it was the right place, right time. I was in the right kind of mindset to be open to something bigger than myself. And that was it. And then I was hooked. So I went to university in Ontario, Canada, to study with a really renowned oboe player. So I was there for 5 years, and then I did graduate school at Florida State University in Tallahassee, another really wonderful teacher that I worked with. After that, I migrated more into the technical side of being at the repair bench. I apprenticed with a very well-renowned technician, and I did that for a few years, and then I got into oboe building with one of the only American oboe makers at the time. And so I did that for a few years, and then I kind of got back into performing, and then everything kind of fell into place where I found this balance of performing, teaching, working on the instruments, So for me, it's a lot of oboe. It's oboe all day long, all night, in my sleep. Manage a huge client base. We do over 500 oboes a year in the
Oh,
shop.
wow.
So it's pretty steady. A lot of those are multi-day projects. We've done like complete full restorations of older instruments, and so it's very exciting. I mean, I get to see both sides of the business in a way that a lot of musicians don't. I've been teaching at Western Carolina University the last 5 years as the instructor of oboe and chamber music there. So I've been doing recitals and chamber music, of course, Savannah Philharmonic. So it's pretty exciting. I've gotten to do tours. I've been to China 4 times, been around the country a couple times. So I think being a musician is a really exciting life. And if you do it right, you get to go to a lot of places. You get to meet the most fascinating people. If you're really lucky, you can fall in love and marry a musician like I did. The myth that we often hear is that oboe is the hardest instrument or one of the hardest instruments to learn. And that in a lot of ways is true in that the instrument is very finicky. It has to be set up very well mechanically. There really can be no leaks in the instrument. Also, the reed is a problem. As an oboist, we learn to make our own reeds, eventually from a raw tube cane. Looks just like bamboo. It's in the bamboo family, but a different species. So we actually get to make the thing that makes the sound for our instrument. And that takes a long time to learn. And you have to be very patient and go through this process of learning how to do this thing. I mean, we kind of live in the 18th century almost as oboe players. So that's the normal myth, is that it's really hard. But if you start on an instrument that is acoustically very sound and mechanically set up, and you start with a teacher that can provide you with decent reeds, it can be just like any other instrument.
Where would you start if we say now, okay, let's learn about an oboe?
I like to start with the reed.
Uh-huh.
It's not very long, as you can see. It's about as long as an index finger. And it's a piece of cane that's folded over onto a tube with cork on it. That's where it goes in the instrument. And then we cut it open, and then you have 2 reeds. That's the double reed. It starts as 1 piece, but it becomes 2. And then we shave that down to get it vibrating. And so you actually have the 2 pieces of cane are vibrating against themselves like this. It's not like this. The sides are tight. How do we engage with the reed is the most important part for an oboe player. How do we form the muscles around the face and the jaw to make that reed an efficient tool for sound? So we often start with some reed exercises just to start to train these muscles and give young players some understanding of what's happening. On day 1, I introduce the concept that we do make our own reeds, and I show the knives and how we do some of the scraping and the different shapes and contours that are in the reed. So I start the education about that the reed is very important. It's also very fragile. The very end of the reed, the very tip of the reed, is only about 1 or 2/100ths of a millimeter thick. The oboe reed doesn't last very long. For a professional, a good reed may last you 2 or 3 services, service being a rehearsal or a performance. And that's basically it. Some only work well for 1 rehearsal. Some may, last for 6 or 7, but that average is kind of 3 or 4. And they change with humidity, temperature, elevation. These are the tubes. This is what we start with. We purchase these by the pound or the kilo. It grows best in the south of France. This is one of the reed knives. The way that the knife works, because we're scraping, doing this motion, as opposed to slicing. So like your kitchen knife slices like a razor blade, but these knives have to have this kind of sharp. So the very end of the blade actually has a little curl or bevel at the very end. You can't see it unless it's under magnification. And that allows you to remove material like this.
I mean, how many hours to like?
Yeah, to go from this
Mm-hmm.
to a finished reed, it's about an hour of scraping, and that may be over a couple days. But you'll sit down and make a batch of reeds. The joke is that you buy one of those big laundry baskets, and every reed that is a failed attempt, you throw it in the laundry basket. When that basket is full, you're starting to understand how to make an oboe reed.
Okay.
The oboe of the wind instruments most closely matches the human voice. Your larynx, your voice box, works just like a double reed. It's two folds of tissue that are vibrating against themselves. Only slightly larger than an oboe reed, about the size of an English horn reed. So, you know, just the mechanics of the way that we communicate, the overtones that our voice produces, the oboe most closely matches that. Clarinets are made of the same wood from Africa. It has several different names, most commonly called grenadilla wood. In Africa, it's actually called impinga wood or African blackwood. It grows all over the continent, but the highest concentrations are down near Tanzania and Mozambique. It's very hard wood. It's one of the, I think it's like the 5th hardest wood on the planet. It's very dense. You can machine it very well, which is important when we want to get these very specific dimensions on the inside. And the harder the wood, generally speaking, the more projection that you get. So grenadilla only became used around the turn of the 20th century. As orchestras were getting bigger, halls were getting bigger, oboe players had to make more sound. Africa was opening up to the European countries in terms of trade. So that's how we get into using grenadilla. We hold it in front of us like a clarinet. And we have these buttons or keys that we open and close different holes. As you close holes down the tube, the scale goes down. And as we open holes up, as the instrument gets shorter, the pitch goes up. Oboe is more of a conical instrument. It's quite small at the top and quite large at the bottom. And it's not a perfect cone. The top joint is about 4 or 5 different tapers. Same with the bottom joint. And the bell, different manufacturers can be very complicated inside the bell. So it's not like a perfectly mathematical cone from the top to the bottom. It's gradually getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The English horn is the tenor of the oboe family. And it is, in a lot of ways, it's kind of a big oboe. I'll hold the two next to each other here. So it's about 50% longer. There's a couple characteristic differences. One is the shape of the bell, which has this kind of bulbous egg shape. And then at the top, the reed actually fits onto this metal tube, just like a bassoon, and that's called a bocal. And the reed is a little bit different. It's actually shorter.
And wider.
But quite a bit wider. It's often a soloist in the orchestra. It doesn't project very well, so when composers wrote for English horn, they wanted to hear that particular color. And it's called an English horn, but what's funny is it's not English, nor is it a horn. The Great Britain, I guess, is famous for messing up French pronunciations. So it's actually premiered in France. It's called a cor anglais, and which of course sounds like core horn, England, so English horn, but it actually means bent wood. The original English horns, this is made of 3 pieces, so it comes apart in the middle, and then the bell comes off. But the original design of the English horn was, it was this long, but it was 1 piece. So in order for you to be able to reach the holes, it was bent, almost like a semicircle. I would love to give a shout out to all my incredible colleagues in the Savannah Philharmonic. I'd also like to give a shout out to my wife, Andrea Pettigrew, who I'm the luckiest person in the world. Also in Savannah, I would love to give a shout out to Aaron and Jim Waterman. Thank you very much to all the beautiful people in the world.
Thank you very much again for this, and stay safe and healthy, as you said.
Thank you, Sanisha.